Thank you all for staying with us through the powerful afternoon of learning. And if session one left you inspired, I promise you are going to love what's coming next. As we step into our final session for the day, let's take a moment to reflect. In a world where attention spans are shrinking and visuals are everywhere, the power of a picture isn't just worth a thousand words. It might be the key to unlocking a child's imagination, language, and critical thinking. Welcome to Visual Literacy Through Picture Books, a session that explores how images can teach, question, and inspire in ways text alone cannot. And now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Ms. Bhavna Gupta, an ELT consultant from Mumbai, India. Bhavna combines storytelling, education, and imagination in her work. With experience as a teacher, trainer, and materials writer, she brings depth to every English lesson. She's also the creative mind behind Storyland by Learning Sutra, a YouTube channel that uses picture books to inspire young minds. For Bhavna, picture books are tools for empathy, discovery, and connecting language with life. In a time where education is evolving every day, this session truly embodies the spirit of our theme, Badalte Shiksha, Badalte Shikshak. Because as teaching transforms, so must teachers. This session is about more than reading, it's about awakening visual thinkers, nurturing creativity, and expanding literacy beyond text. And here's more exciting news. Right after the session ends, we will share a first CPD 2025 quiz link. This is your chance to test what you have learned, reflect on today's insights, and stand a chance to win Amazon vouchers worth up to rupees 10,000. So here's how it works. The quiz will be shared right after the session ends. We'll share the quiz link in the chat box. And all sessions are streaming live on YouTube. So if you need to revisit any key points, feel free to rewatch. To receive your e-certificates, please fill out the feedback form, which will be shared to you on Monday. Now, as Mrs. Tara, your super ma'am says, great teachers see the magic in words, but the best ones knows how to spark wonders without saying a word. And with that, let's dive into this inspiring world of visual storytelling. Ms. Bhavna Gupta, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Tanisha, and namaste to all of you. Thank you, Chand, for inviting me for this session. Namaste, everyone. Wherever you are connected from, I told you I'm from Mumbai. Right now, I'm connecting from Mumbai. So, wherever you are from, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. As Tanisha was saying, I can see a lot of you want to become like Mrs. Tara, the Superman. So welcome, and I hope I'm able to help you in your journey. However, I would also, when I was looking at the participant list and the chat, for probably some reason, I can see a lot of names of women. I think for obvious reasons, a lot of women are teachers.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, Bhavna. Your video is not visible.
Okay, my video is on. It's
Okay,
already on.
still not
Okay, let me
visible.
share my screen and then you can see if you can, if it's still not visible
Sure.
or something. Yeah. Let me just go to share screen because my video is on from my side. Just a minute. So I've shared my screen. Can you see me?
Yes, it's visible. It's visible.
Yeah, great. So I'm just going to switch to screen presentation mode. You can see the presentation mode.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so as I was saying, a lot of you want to be like Mrs. Tara, but I can also see some men in the participant list. So I would like to welcome all genders to this webinar, and I hope I can help you in your journey in becoming a better teacher. So we are going to talk about visual literacy today, as Tanisha did mention. And so because we are talking about visual literacy, let me warn you that you will see a lot of visuals in my presentation also. So let's start with a quick activity about visual literacy. So I'm going to show you an image in a second. Look at the image and try to think about what the image is trying to say. If you want, you can just make mental notes, think about it. If you want, you can also put your answers in the chat. We will have a Q&A round at the end. So if you have any questions in the middle of the presentation also, please put them in the chat. And I think Tanisha or Akriti will be making note of them. And I will be addressing some of those questions, as many as I can at the end of the session. So get ready for your first visual. Think about what it tells you, what you see in the image, and what message it gives you. Tanisha, please let me know one or two interesting responses that come in.
Sure, ma'am. I can see heart full of people, a heart love, love for all, sign of
Hmm?
love,
Hmm?
colorful heart, heart full of happiness, दिल की सोच,
Oh,
heart,
lovely.
rainbow heart.
So this is a collage, as you rightly said. A lot of, I can hear the word heart many times. And as you rightly saw in the image, it is the image of a heart, which is actually a collage made from tiny images. And because it is made of these tiny images, it expands the message of a heart. What I understand from this image is people coming together, loving each other. However, your interpretation could be different. So we are going to look at different interpretations too. And remember, visual literacy is not just about one interpretation. So let's look at our vision for today. These are my visions, and I hope you join me on and you help me in achieving my vision. So three things that we are going to talk about today. The first one is the what and the why and the wow of visual literacy. So we look a little into what it is and what it is not. We look at a storyteller's toolkit. So I'll be giving you some ideas, hopefully, to apply to your classrooms for enhancing or for embedding visual literacy into your classes. And finally, I'll be talking about how I like to connect language with life. So have extend the classroom into the real world. So we'll be talking about that finally. So let's start with your first activity on the first slide. So we're first going to look at the what, why, and the wow. So what is visual literacy according to you? Think about it. I'll give you just 30 seconds.
Ma'am, some of the participants are saying if you could just increase your volume. They are unable to hear
Okay.
you properly.
Okay. My volume is on full. Let me just, okay. Is it better now? Is it better?
Yes, ma'am, to me, but not for the participants.
Okay. And because my volume is on full right now, I'll try to speak louder though.
Okay, so the responses are communication through images, words
Mm-hmm.
pop up as we see an image, learning through seeing, learning through
Perfect.
visual.
Great. So half my job is done because I can see a lot of people know what visual literacy is about. So we are going to look at some interesting definitions that I found about visual literacy. The first one was, sorry. So visual literacy is the ability to read, write, respond to, and analyze visual images. I think like a lot of people were saying in the chat, this is what visual literacy is about. I also liked a few more definitions. So I want to talk about a few more definitions and something about visual literacy. So communicate with visual literacy, make good use of all the non-verbal ways of communication, color, shape, form, texture. So if you can see from this definition, visual literacy is also considered a non-verbal way of communication. So that's something that stood out for me. It is also a form of critical thinking that enhances your intellectual ability. So again, critical thinking is something that we want our children to learn, and visual literacy is definitely a tool to help them to achieve that goal. And finally, Steve Jobs says we need to work with today's learners in the medium of their generation. So, as you know, our generation is bombarded with images everywhere, content online, social media everywhere. So, we need to tap into this treasure house of learning. And that's why visual literacy is important. Having said that, let's see what visual literacy is not. So there are some myths, and we are going to bust those myths. Visual literacy does not mean just looking at pictures. It's much, much beyond that. It is not just looking at pictures, it's understanding the images. It means asking yourself what the image is trying to say, just like we did in the first image. What message does the image want to give you? It is not only for people who are artists. It is for everyone. You don't need to be an artist to understand or to know visual literacy, because just like you can read words, you can also train your learners, your students, to read images. Depends on how you teach them. And we all see visuals, as we all said. So a great way to look at these visuals every day in class, around them, and then tap into these and have some interesting discussions around these visuals. It's not about memorizing fancy artworks or art words like colors, shape, contrast. Great, it's good to know these words. It's good to know what art is, how colors influence an image. However, that's not the only thing. The real skill, as we said, is talking about, thinking about what is the message, who made this visual, and why was it made? Was it made for selling something? Was it made to just put across an idea? What was the intention, the purpose of the image? And how does that image make you feel? Or what does it make you think? So these are three things that visual literacy is not. So ideally, it's about thinking deeply about what we see. So it's connecting to an image and understanding what it wants to tell us. Now let's see why visual literacy matters so much. So we're going to look at some ideas which I had, and you can definitely share more ideas if you have. These are some of the main ideas that came into my mind. So first, as we said, it enhances critical thinking. Children learn to analyze images. They learn to question an image, not take it at face value, understand what is the purpose of the image. So it definitely enhances their critical thinking. It boosts creativity and imagination. So when they look at different images, they get innovative ideas to express themselves. And this expression can be in the form of art, it can be in the form of words, it can be through design, it can be through storytelling. So these are different ideas and they add to the creativity of the child. It improves communication and collaboration, which is again a life skill along with creativity and critical thinking. So again, when you talk about these images, when you find common meaning in these images or even different meaning in the images, it adds a lot to the communication process. You learn to decode the images. You learn to convey your message through an image. So these are all different ways of communication. Also, it strengthens academic performance. As we all know, a lot of subjects have diagrams, there are graphs, there are different kinds of charts, there are infographics which children need to read and understand. So this is going to definitely help them in understanding what an image actually means. It supports multisensory learning because we are exposing them to different senses. We are making them look with their eyes. Sometimes we are making them look at colors, different things in the images. And sometimes it's even videos, so they are also engaged by listening to it. So even that is visual literacy. They are looking at videos. So again, it definitely is a multisensory experience for them, and it helps them to uh, engage with all their senses. It encourages media awareness and digital citizenship. So nowadays, again, there's a lot of false information on the internet, and our children need to recognize what information, what images are genuine, which ones are not. And that will help them to identify what kind of bias, and identify the purpose of communication, and whether they want to be led by that communication, or whether they would like to avoid that kind of communication. Finally, it also makes children future ready, because these are the skills of the future. And every job, be it designing, be it technology, be it IT, in the future, there will be a lot of images that children will be exposed to, learners will be exposed to. And that is why we have to make children life ready, future ready right now. So these are some of the reasons. However, for me, the biggest reason beyond all of this is that images are fun and engaging for children of any age. In fact, not just for children, even for adults. We love looking at images. We love analyzing them. We love breaking them into bits and pieces and thinking about it. So I think that is one of the biggest reason, if we don't look at all these other intellectual reasons also. So it's definitely fun for children to look at an image, to see the characters in the image, and to build a story around it. So any other reasons that you can add to this list? I'll give you about a minute. If you want to add anything, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat.
Ma'am, there are no responses as of now.
Sure. So keep reading them, make a note of something,
Yeah,
and
it's
we can come back.
one is there, it promotes critical thinking.
Yes, definitely. All right. Now let's look at picture books as a tool for visual literacy. So generally, we notice in schools that children are generally pushed away from picture books, and they are told to read proper books with a lot of text, long stories, long narratives. However, I feel, my personal opinion again is that picture books are a powerhouse of emotions, a powerhouse of learning, and there's a lot that you can do through picture books, not just for young learners, but also for adults. So I think there is a lot of potential in picture books, as we will see now. So we are going to compare picture books with some other books and see why picture books could be a good tool for visual literacy. So let's compare these. So first of all, picture books are based on illustrations. So in picture books, images are the main force that convey the entire story. The meaning is sort of derived from the pictures with very little text to support it. Other books, very little images, very few images, mostly text, which can be good as children grow up, but may not be good for children who are very young. And if you want to inculcate a love for reading, they may be a little put off by a lot of text. So illustrations are a great way to capture the attention of young learners. Text length, again, as I was saying, shorter, simple text in picture books, which is easier to comprehend, not too much difficult vocabulary to distract them, whereas other books may have longer text, higher vocabulary, and maybe more complex messages as well. The style, the narrative, again, is built from a combination of words and pictures, whereas in other books, generally it's conveyed through the text, which needs a lot of intensive reading. Picture books are beginner friendly. When I say they are beginner friendly, that does not mean they are only for beginners. However, they can be a very good way of capturing young learners' attention because they are attractive by their very nature. So if you want to develop literacy, early literacy, you want to teach them reading, picture books are good because it sort of combines the text with the pictures to give them the main idea. So even if there is very little text, or even if they do not understand some kind of word um, in the text, the pictures will more or less give them the gist of the story at that point. Whereas in other books, they require higher proficiency, they need comprehension skills, which are higher. Again, educationally, picture books are a great tool for visual literacy, for teaching them comprehension, for developing creativity, whereas the focus of other books or longer novels or any other books is to enhance vocabulary. It could enhance critical thinking and deep reading skills, whereas picture books are something which helps them to get to the stage where they will have deep reading skills. So it's like a journey. In learning, picture books is a great tool for introducing important concepts, for looking at emotions, how characters feel. It's great for storytelling because there are so many images they can relate to what they see in the picture books. Whereas other books are more useful for exploring very complex ideas, where there are deep narratives, plot twists, and long, complex ideas, abstract concepts also. So basically, picture books are a simpler version which help children to reach maybe a love for reading, which takes them towards novels. Now, as I said, target audience is definitely young readers. However, picture books can be used for all ages, whereas the other books are usually suitable for older children, teens, adults, etc. So, having said that, I think I have yet to meet an adult who doesn't like picture books or who doesn't like stories. So I think picture books or any kind of story is something which has universal appeal across all ages, all genders, all countries. So I think it's a global concept. Now, moving on to, that was the first one, what, why, and wow. Now we're going to look at a little toolkit which I can help you with. Some ways in which you can embed visual literacy into your classroom. Now, remember, as I said, I am a great fan of picture books. However, we may not all have the luxury of using picture books always. Some of you may be teaching in schools. So there is still a lot of scope to use the images which are already there in your course book, in your textbook, and have discussions, short discussions around them. That could be a great way to embed visual literacy too. Also, if an interesting image that you see on the social media or on your way to from maybe school to home or home to school could be something you could take a picture of and then have a quick discussion about that. That's a great way to start off, even if you don't have picture books. So first one, we're going to look at some pictures now. These are some glimpses from the storytelling channel that I run and what I try to achieve through these stories on picture books. So first of all, observing details, describing details. The story here on my channel is the name is Beauty is Missing, which is a lovely story. I think if you read one story or if you listen to one story on my channel, I would suggest let it be this. It's a great idea for busting myths about beauty. So do have a look in case you're interested. Now, if you look at this visual, you can ask children, what do you see in this image? Look at the details. What colors do you see in this image? What is it that you can say about the story even before you actually start listening to the story or even before the characters are introduced? So can you write in the chat, what is one thing that you can see? If I ask you, where is the story set or what's going to happen in the story, what could you predict from this? What details can help you? I'll wait for a couple of seconds to see if there are any
Old lady
responses.
cutting grass for the goat.
Great. Yes.
The old woman is cutting grass again.
Mhm. Look deeply, look more carefully, observe.
It's a rural setup. Story
Yes,
set in fields.
perfect.
Story took place in jungle,
Yes.
showing
What
kindness
type
to
of what
animals.
type of trees do you see there? Look at the trees carefully. What do you see? A rural setup. Any particular kind of trees, any particular kinds of
Banana
clues?
tree.
Yes. And what does a banana tree tell you? Where could the story be set?
Both of them searching for food, killing the goat farm.
Yes.
Old women hold the tail of goat. A farmer
Great.
taking care of
Great.
cattle in a field.
Excellent. Yeah. So those are the things that I want children to look at. So somebody said banana tree, which was a great question to lead into geography and talk about where do you think the story will be set? Do you know anything about a state where banana trees are very common? So that could easily lead into that. If you are looking at higher level learners, um, you could also have a debate about what is the lady doing? Is she about to cut grass or is she about to kill the goat with that knife that she has? Which could lead into a discussion about vegan lifestyles, vegetarians, non-vegetarians, etc. So it depends on how you adapt the story and what your objectives are. You can make them look deeper into the visual and explore that even before you start telling the story. And that is how you are sort of setting them up for listening to the story. You're creating that curiosity in them. The second one is by analyzing facial expressions and body language. A story called Stage Fright, again, which is on my channel. Now, let me tell you, these stories which I adapt are not written by me. These are just curated stories. I pick stories based on what messages I want to teach learners, what I want to talk about, and what I feel is not spoken about enough in the world. So here, when you look at the expression, what do you feel? How do you think this girl feels? Girl, boy, whatever. What does this tell you?
Scared, cold, lonely, brave,
Mm-hmm.
scared to talk, a child kidnapped,
Okay.
embracing,
And what does that yellow circle tell you? What does that remind you of? What does that
light,
remind you of?
highlight, moon,
Yes.
bounded, spotlight,
Yes. Yes. A
focus light.
spotlight. Great. So a great way to show someone who is on stage. And how do you think the person is feeling on stage? How do you think this person is feeling?
Scared, nervous,
Yes, as we all do when we are on
in
stage.
shock,
Probably even the best of speakers.
stage
I, as a
fright,
speaker, still feel butterflies in my tummy when I have to present, whether it's online or face to face. A few seconds before that, I have butterflies. So it's a great way to explore emotions, look at what they feel, and analyze the character here. Looking at story elements, how you could predict. Again, a story called Petros and his dog, which was chosen because I wanted to talk about dogs and empathy towards animals. So again, here, what do you think the story is going to be about? You can ask questions like that. You can tell me now in the chat. What do you think the story is about? Who are the characters in the story? What will happen next? What happened before this?
rescue, saving a
Mhm.
dog, dog rescue,
Yes,
a
great.
dog fell in a pit,
Yes. So this is how you
empathy,
build up the story by asking questions. Do you think this dog has a name? What would you name this dog? If this was your dog, what would you name the dog?
Tom, Charlie, Coco, Spotty, Tuffy,
Lovely. So do you
first.
think children will enjoy giving names to the dog if they see something like this? I do live storytelling on YouTube. I don't have a live audience sometimes, but I can assure you that ask them names and they'll be coming up with hundreds and hundreds. And that's how you will build a connect with the story. So I named the dog Berry because that's my pet. My indie dog is named Berry, so I named her Berry. You would like to name them someone else. Okay. Also, understanding perspective and point of view. So, again, stories are generally written from one perspective, the perspective of the author or the protagonist. However, it can be about different perspectives, it can be about different points of view as well. A story called The Show Must Go On. This is a very, very special story because the story was written by my colleague, one of my colleagues. And on special request, she allowed me to narrate this story on my channel. But I love the story because, again, it talks about something which I really wanted to and which we generally may not speak to children about. But I think it's really important that we do. So what do you see? What do you feel from this image? Look at the image. Let's not read the text for now. I have included that, but look at the image of the girl. What do you see? Why is this image so
Sad girl alone,
right?
meditation alone, sad and lonely,
Yes,
imprisoned, low on energy,
yes.
caught up in a
So
room.
if you look at the image, you can see how that perspective, even if this text was not there, your perspective, your perception of this girl would still be shaped by the way the image is conveyed to you. The girl standing alone with, the empty passageway behind her. It gives the idea of loneliness, sadness, right? So, and by the way, this is the story about a girl who is going through cancer. So this is about childhood cancer, and I felt I really connected with this, and I think there is a lot of awareness that we need to spread about childhood cancer also. So that's why I requested my colleague, and I was happy to narrate the story. Recognizing color, symbols in stories, etc. So again, a story called Chuchu Manthu and the Jar of Toffees. Again, a very sweet story talking about someone, a girl losing someone she loves. So again, something that I wanted to talk about, something that I was very, very emotional about. So it's about a little girl who loses her favorite uncle who falls sick. Now, if you look at this image, and if you look at the story in my channel also, you can see I've put some questions here. So this is what I do. Sometimes I speak, I ask questions. I also put them on the screen so that people can read them, think about them. So what do you think the color of this picture makes you feel? Look at the background of the story. The dark red, sort of earthy red color, big, huge shadows. What does this make you feel? What does this color make you feel? What do you think will happen next in the story?
Danger, girl in trouble, the girl is waiting for someone,
Hmm.
sadness,
Yes.
girl
So
may be
again,
alone.
colors have a big impact on the story itself, on the characters, on the setting of the story, etc. So when we talk about red color, we might feel there's something mysterious happening, or there's something really, dangerous. Maybe a red balloon as a symbol of danger. Sometimes there are bright colors that you see, which may show that the character or the scene or the setting is a happy kind of a story. So colors have a large role to play in visuals. And that's something that you can, again, make them aware about what certain colors mean to children. Moving on, exploring sequencing and the visual flow of a story. So looking at how a story or how an image is depicted and what it wants to convey. So again, the same story, beauty is missing. One of the pages in the story is like this. What do you think this image wants to tell you?
Peaceful village, fearing of shadow set up of a town,
Yes,
puzzle, way to home, find the way, beautiful environment, way back
exactly.
home.
Yes. So this is such a simple and effective way of showing the road around the village. Now, I'll give you a little context behind this. The story goes that Beauty, as you see, the story Beauty is missing. So they are looking for Beauty. The police officer in the story is going around the village looking for Beauty. And to show that she's going around the village, and it's a she, remember, the police officer is a she here, which is a great role model. So that's why I didn't say policeman, I said police officer. So the police officer goes around the village looking for Beauty, and this great visual shows how she went across the village looking in different places. So instead of going to different little setups and having so many pages, this one picture conveys so many ideas. Last but not the least, comparing words and pictures. So here, there was a beautiful story again, My Brother's Wheelchair. And I call it wheelchair because the word we has a very exciting tone to it. And that's not something that I've invented. It was already there in the story. Now, in the story is about a little boy who is on a wheelchair. However, if you read the story or if you listen to it, you will see it's a very, very happy story. And it completely shatters the idea that anyone on a wheelchair is always sad and does nothing except remain on the wheelchair always. If you look at the story, you will see the boy going through all kinds of different activities. The boy's sister, that's so both the siblings have a great time together and they learn how to navigate the world, even in spite of being on a wheelchair. That's fine. But the boy is still enjoying what he wants to. So this is again a great idea of helping our children understand not to have sympathy towards someone on a wheelchair, but empathy. Look at them. Don't look at them with sympathy. Help them only if they need the help. They are people who have learned. Also, let's not glorify someone who is on a wheelchair. So if the boy is on a wheelchair, that does not mean the child becomes an automatic role model for everyone that, oh, he's in a wheelchair, but he's still navigating life. He or she is just going through life as we are. But they are not compromising. They are not avoiding, or they are not doing things that are always stereotypical of children on a wheelchair. Okay, I could see a raised hand. Was it by mistake, or does anyone want to ask a question? You can also put it in the chat. I will be taking some questions later. So these are some ways of um, uh, dealing with visual literacy, asking questions, looking at the images, asking them to look at how this boy feels, what the characters, feels, how you think about the character, so on and so forth. So these are things that I embed into my storytelling when I narrate or read aloud these stories. Again, some more visual literacy boosters, as you may do with any kind of activity. You may not always have picture books, but there are always ways to enhance and to embed visual literacy into your classroom. Spot the difference, two different images with which we've always been doing, I think, since childhood, and we enjoy it. Becoming a detective, finding differences within the picture. That's a great way to help them notice details in the picture. Sequencing images, so give them a set of different images from maybe the same story without reading the text, without narrating the story. Ask them to work in pairs, groups, alone, whatever you feel like, and they could sort of sequence and build a story with those images. I Spy game, what do you see? You can tell them, maybe give them a picture and ask them to look for a certain element of the picture, which is probably not very obvious. Maybe look for how many animals can you see in the picture? What trees do you see? For example, the first picture, you could even have a game like, what type of trees do you see in the picture? So these are things, again, emoji emotions. So we always overlook emojis and think, okay, they're just sort of there for WhatsApp messages, etc. But you can help them to learn how to build a story through images. Using images, maybe different emojis, they can try to build stories. So again, on social media, you can see a lot of puzzles which come up with these emojis, and you need to guess the name of the movie or the story or some kind of word. or phrase. So similarly, you can ask them to create their own story using emojis that they want to. Draw what you hear, narrate the story, let them draw it while you are narrating the story. A very usual technique is, okay, listen to the story. After the story, I will ask you to repeat the story, which is very, very text based, and not every child will enjoy it or will be able to do it. So another way could be just keep drawing whatever you understand from my story. And remember, this is not something that has a right or a wrong answer. It's person's, it's a child's interpretation of a story that matters. What happens next in the story? A perpetual question to build curiosity. Okay, what do you think will happen? You saw the dog in the pit. Will someone rescue it or what? And if someone rescues it, what will they do with the dog? Think about it. So these are things, these are questions that you can come up with. And then you can also have the reverse of something like image sequencing. You can give them different kinds of images from newspapers, magazines, or any kinds of books. And you can ask them to create a collage of these pictures, to create some kind of idea, story, a sort of overflowing theme, something which underpins the entire collage. So this is again another activity that can be tried. So these are some ways. Now let's look at where words meet the world. And this is my favorite section because this is something that made me really reflect on what I was doing as a language trainer. So I'm basically an English language trainer, as Tanisha said. However, I believe in taking language out of the classroom, and let's see how I do that. So since we are talking about storytelling, close your eyes for just about 30 seconds. Think of your favorite story and think about what did you learn from that story. I'll give you 30 seconds. Think. If you want, you can also put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to proceed, assuming that you have your favorite stories right in your mind. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there are two things that you generally think about when what you learn from the story. As a child, when you listen to a story, you definitely learn language skills. You're listening, you're absorbing language, and you will use it at some point. However, you also learned a lot about life through stories that were probably narrated by your grandparents, parents, or as parents, if you narrated those stories to your children. It's a great way. Your perception of the society, of the world, is definitely shaped by the stories that you hear. So it's a great way to talk about the world. So language and life, and this is what I believe in. So I call it language and life lessons. I try to teach something about the real world. And because I wanted to do this, I created my own framework, which helped me to think about or to sort of put into action what I was thinking about. And I call it the 3S framework. This 3S framework was built with 3 circles with 3 S's. And we are soon going to see what the 3 S's are. Now, because I'm basically primarily a language trainer, we are going to think from the perspective of language learning or English language learning. So we are going to look at that in a minute. So my first circle in the 3S framework is a circle which has 4 different things. Let me see if you can guess, make one word starting with S for these 4 different things that you see. So it consists of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So if you are a language teacher or if you have interest in language learning, there is one word which includes all these, and that word starts with an S. Can anyone tell me what that word is? You can write it in the chat.
Amran has mentioned setting.
Okay.
Others have mentioned LSRW skills.
Yes. So these are the skills. Perfect. Great. Thank you. So this is the skills. This is one of the important elements in language learning. And fortunately or unfortunately, this is one which is most, spoken about. However, there is one more important element in language learning, which is also something which starts with S and consists of these four. We have vocabulary, grammar, phonology, that's the sound, pronunciation, sounds, accents, etc., and discourse, which is connecting language, the flow of language, how conversations are connected together. Any word for this starting with an S? This is another important aspect of language learning, skills and
Speaking
dash.
skills, speech,
Okay, so without any
symbols,
ado, these are called the
semantics.
systems.
Okay.
Systems, right? So the skills and systems are two strong foundations of English language learning. And generally, we need to combine these to give a sort of immersive and holistic language experience or a language lesson. So when I started teaching language, I found this was not enough for me. Though they were the foundations, I wanted something else as a mental reminder to expand my class or lesson into the world. And that's when I came up with an evolving circle. So inner circle, outer circle is systems, inner circle skills, evolving circle by the name itself, it's something which is going on expanding. It's not something which has any limits. The other two circles are just four because they are um, have been created by language stalwarts in the past. This evolving circle is something which I created to add to my framework, and it's something which can keep changing as the need is. Here, I can include any topic that I want to, which I want to teach them. It could be about visual literacy, some skills. It could be about social emotional learning. It could be about climate. It could be about gender equality and stories about war, refugees, and as you saw, some glimpses, stories about death, cancer, sickness, children on wheelchairs. So basically disability or inclusion, anything that I want to include. So I want to have these four aspects within this circle, and not just these four, but of course, these are changeable. These are something that you can keep changing as the need is. And this is what I call the society circle. So this is the third S, skills, systems, and the society. And remember, society is an evolving circle, not something which is fixed. However, the first two circles are more or less fixed because those are the sort of foundations of language learning. So when I created this, I wanted some kind of framework to put together all these. So when I created a story, when I narrated a story or created any kind of lesson or materials for any lesson, I tried to bring all these three together. And when I did that, I started calling them language and life lessons because I talked about both these aspects. So it was a mental reminder for me. Now, because I wanted a mental reminder and because I think it's good to have some kind of a structure in place when you want to achieve certain goals, that's why I went around to creating a checklist for myself, which I generally used, at least at the beginning. Now it's like mentally using that checklist. But at the beginning, I used physical copies of a checklist, which was similar to this. And I used to make notes. Okay, what can I think about when I'm listening to a story? When I read a story, what can I talk about? How can I talk about at least one element from each of these circles? So maybe any one skill, an activity that uh, develops any one skill, listening, speaking, reading, or writing, any one activity which develops or talks about any one of the systems, a vocabulary activity, a grammar, maybe something like a pronunciation or a discourse activity. So discourse is again something which is usually sort of overlooked, but I like to look at those elements to bring about that flow. And one element from the society circle, not all of them, because every story cannot have everything. So it's not one size fits all, but yeah, I try to have at least one element from each circle so that I can build a wholesome story, which is something like a language and a life lesson for me. So this is a checklist At the end of the session, I will also be sharing a link to my website, and anyone who wants can download and read more about this also. There are certain blogs on my website, which I keep writing on a regular basis about these things. Now, along with the story narration on YouTube, I also create materials which help to sort of structure thinking into the direction that I want them to. So activities like this, think to learn. So these think to learn is questions which I ask them before I even start narrating the story. And it helps them think and it helps them set a context or a background for the story. So that's one element. Then in between, when I finish the narration of the story, there are questions, sort of comprehension questions, or a mix of questions which are comprehension and higher order thinking skills. So again, there is opportunity for them to think, pause, and think deeply about these stories. And finally, window to the world, or something which goes beyond the story. Now, the story, as I said, was about childhood cancer, and it was sort of set in the context of a hospice. A hospice is a place where a person who is terminally sick can be kept for I don't want to say this, but for the last stages of their life, but can be kept happily. So introducing the idea of a hospital versus a hospice, what is that? That's something that I brought out from these questions. How is it different? How would you feel about visiting someone in a hospice, etc.? And then there are, of course, language activities, and there are creative activities, which I keep adding to different stories to help them build language skills as well. So this is my framework that I use for my understanding and for my satisfaction that I have covered these. Now, finally, let's quickly pause and ponder about what you have learned. What's your takeaway from today? So as I ask my learners, I'll ask you also to pause and ponder about things. So whatever we learned or whatever you heard from me today, what was your favorite why of visual literacy? What's your favorite reason for teaching visual literacy? I spoke about a lot of reasons. Which one is your favorite? Why will you start trying to talk about or trying to embed visual literacy?
Alka has mentioned it encourages different perspectives.
Yes. So even a story which a child reads, as I said, it's from the point of view of a certain person, the author or the protagonist or something. You can give them activities, write the same story from the perspective of the villain or the anti person, or maybe the dog story, write the story from the perspective of a dog. That will entirely change the narrative of the story. So that's something which is, yes, a great activity again, adding to the other ones. What's your favorite tool to weave magic? I spoke about 7 different tools and how you could use these tools. What's your favorite one, or anything else also? Doesn't have to be from what I told you. I'm quickly going to go on because you can write some answers in the chat very quickly. And what's your favorite circle from the 3S framework? Skills, systems, and society. These are the 3 circles. And while the others
Society,
are okay.
society, skills, system, society, skills.
Great. So I don't want to influence anyone, but my favorite circle is personally the society circle, not just because I created that or I added that to my framework, but because that is the opportunity, or that is the circle that lets me evolve a language lesson into a life lesson. So that's something that I will never compromise on. All right. So I think we've come to the end of the session. Do we have any questions? So this is my website, Learning Sutra Lifelong Learning. This is the QR code. You can take a picture, you can scan it, you will be able, and on the right is my YouTube channel, Storyland by Learning Sutra. And I'm also called Story Auntie because of that channel. So, any questions now? I would.
Participants, if you have any questions, please drop your questions in the chat box.
Okay, I'm going to
There
exit
was,
presentation mode.
yeah, sure. There was one question before. Kindly suggest few stories for teaching mathematical concepts.
Oh, I would definitely say go to a site called Pratham Story Weavers. Most of my stories are taken from there, and you will find multiple stories for teaching STEM subjects also there. That would be my strongest suggestion. Pratham Story Weavers. And that's something which is in my agenda and scheme of things also. So as I go along, I want to address different topics and talk about some stories related to STEM subjects as well. But it's slow and steady. Anything else?
Very
Okay,
nice session, good session. Thank you. Useful session.
I'm just going to put these links in the chat for anybody who wishes to. The QR code, of course, is there. But
Okay.
these,
Bhavna, there's one question. How to
yes.
incorporate visual learning without any digital tool?
Oh, so in fact, I would say I am the kind who would actually look at a storybook rather than a visual tool. The only reason why I'm doing it digitally is because it allows me to reach more children, to reach more parents who can talk about this and use this tool. However, as I said, even if you do not have any digital tools, any picture, any scene, any scenario that you see outside you could be an excellent starter for a discussion on what they see. So I'm just assuming maybe around your school, look at the surroundings of your school. I'm sure you will see a lot of images. Just take one picture of that image or show them the image live, tell them to look at it and have a discussion. What do you think? Why is this image? What colors do you see in the image? What is happening here? And even from your textbook, lots of images in your textbook, a great way to explore ideas about gender equality. Sometimes there are images in textbooks which show very stereotypical characters. For example, women working in the kitchen, men working in offices, nurses, usually females. So these are things to question. So that's where you can have a sort of discussion. Look at that. Ask them questions. Okay, do you think, for example, going back to my story, beauty is missing. As I said, there is a police officer who looks around looking for beauty. Now, the biggest question here is who is beauty, which I'm not going to tell you, but you can definitely visit my channel. Think about what ideas you have. Who do you think beauty is? And then view the story. In the story also, I have prompts about that. So if you see there is a lady who is a police officer, a very critical or a crucial question I ask at that stage is, all right, we call police men. But if you see a lady who is a police officer or who's in the police, will you call her a policeman? So what kind of words? How this is my introduction to gender equality, to gender neutral language. So introduce them to different terms. So English is generally it's a gendered language. There's a lot of gender here when we talk about headmaster, headmistress, actor, actress, but those things are changing. Language is changing now. For example, even chairman is no longer chairman. We call them chairperson. And that's how language is evolving. Similarly, headmistress, headmaster, head of school, policeman, policewoman, no, police officer, which can work for both. So that's my way of introducing gender neutral language. So that can be where you want to lead them, depends on what you want them to think about. Does that
Thank you
answer the
so
question?
much. Thank you so much, Bhavna, for such a powerful and thought provoking session. Your work in visual literacy has opened new dimensions of how picture books can transform language learning, spark imagination, and foster deeper comprehension in our classrooms. Today's journey equipped us with valuable strategies to harness the power of images for critical thinking, use picture books as tools for deeper discussion and exploration, bridge text and visuals to promote inclusive expression and understanding. Let's carry these strategies forward to create learning environments that are more reflective, imaginative, and inclusive. A heartfelt thank you to each one of you for staying with us, asking brilliant questions, keeping this session engaging, and making this day truly meaningful.
So I would
Together,
just
we
like to, Tanisha, I can just see two questions which I would quickly like to address if you allow me for a minute. There's a
yeah,
question
sure.
how to create a picture for a story. I think Canva is a great tool for that. But if you don't want to create pictures, you can just take pictures which you already see. You don't need to really create a picture. Another important question that I see is it's not practical. We are in a hurry to complete the syllabus. I understand that. I've been a teacher in school, so I understand completely the constraints of syllabus. However, it's only about asking one or two questions about an image that you see and help them to question that image. So it's not about having an entire lesson about visual literacy. You're doing a lesson, you see a picture, ask just one or two questions, move on. It's more about giving them that thought process, leading them, not about giving them any responses or answers. Okay, I think that's all. I'm not going to keep you for too long now. Great.
Thank you, Bhavna. On that note, let's continue to embody the spirit of Badalti Shiksha, Badalte Shikshak. And now, the moment we have all been waiting for. The first quiz of CPD 2025 is here. Participants, we have pasted the quiz link in the chat box. Please copy and save the link and attempt at your convenience. Participants, please copy the quiz link. And key reminders, the quiz link will remain active until 11:59 p.m. on 6th of April, that is tomorrow. And both sessions are available on YouTube. Please feel free to revisit and reflect before you attempt the quiz. And the winners will stand a chance to receive Amazon vouchers worth up to rupees 10,000. Good luck, educators, and thank you once again for being a part of day one of CPD 2025. See you all in the next session. Thank you so much, Bhavna. If you want, you may leave the
Yeah,
meeting.
great. Namaste,
Yeah.
everyone, and good luck for the quiz. Bye
Thank you
bye.
so
See
much,
you.
Bhavna. Bye bye. Take care. Participants, we'll keep the session live for 5 more minutes. Please copy the link. We have pasted the quiz link in the chat box. Please copy the link. Angel, it's in the chat box only. We'll paste the link again. Everyone, please copy the link. We have pasted the quiz link in the chat box. Please note the quiz will remain open until 11:59 p.m. on 6th of April. And if you want to revise your concepts, please visit our YouTube channel, S Chan School Education. Both the sessions are available on S Chan School Education YouTube channel. We have also pasted the link of the quiz of the YouTube channel in the chat box. We'll share the feedback form on Monday, so don't worry about that. You'll get the certificates by Monday. We will share the feedback link with you all on Monday. Gayatri, we have pasted the quiz link.